Welcome to the Leafy podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow.
Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Leafy podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Tammy Geerling, the podcast manager, and today joining me are Jennifer Gligorich and Brian Price. They are the founders and owners of Leafy Legal Services. Thank you so much for both coming on today, and we're really excited to talk about our topic, when you least expect it, expect it. In honor of today is Friday the 13th, and it's also a full moon Friday the 13th. So extra freaky today. So to get us started, you two want to say hello and kind of get us going?
Hello. So yeah, we've already had our Freaky Friday moments this morning, so we'll probably interject those as we keep going. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to today's talk. And yeah, Jennifer, do you want to kick us off?
Well, I'm just so annoyed right now because my Freaky Friday has had me like, I got this weird thing in the background. I don't know, is it a ghost? And I've got like some 18-wheeler that just seems to just want to buzz my house, and the phone rings. So yeah, when you least expect it, you expect it. But you know, I'm a big fan of Halloween anyway, so I always get into these like more morose sort of deals, I guess. Who knows? I got my Freaky Friday eyelashes on too. Y'all see them? Look, they're huge. They're going to fly off on their own accord at any moment. So stay tuned to the very end because you don't know what's going to happen.
Bat your eyes and levitate.
Yeah, I can fly. So stupid. Anyway, yeah, so we had a big post that went out yesterday, and we had a lot of people that saw it, and it basically talked about for why new and small businesses need to think about creating an LLC, because no one thinks about that, especially at first. And when you're just starting out, or if you're a freelancer or a small business, like, why do you even need that? That's something you want down the road. That's the thought process, but it's actually not true. You're going to want to get your structure set up right away. Like get rid of the basic things to protect yourself before you start. Because guess what? What happens, and what we've seen happen, and Brian can tell you, and Tammy can tell you, because you know we've worked with small business owners and real estate investors for so long, is that by the time you get going and you know what you're doing and you're no longer making the mistakes, you're like this little freight train, right? But then something that you did over here can come back and bite you, and you never bothered to get yourself structured. Yeah. And so it's like, wait, I did that, or that was so long ago, or this, or, and at that point, there's not much you can do. I mean, we have to try to retroactively go backwards to help people, but you really want to consider getting everything in place, you know, whether you're in childcare or you're a creative or catering or you're a real estate, you know, investor. Usually real estate investors, you know, we all got our side hustles and stuff like that, but you want to make sure that you have that all, you know, done correctly.
Yeah, if you want to do something more than just a hobby, if you're just doing it for fun, then you probably don't need any structuring. But if you're going to do it to actually earn money in some way, shape, or form, it's definitely worth to do that. And it kind of puts skin in the game too, knowing that you're going to do what you're planning on doing as well. So it is kind of a goal setting thing as well at the same time, where you're actually going to pursue this venture. So. But yeah, if you don't do it, there could be many ramifications down the line that I've seen have happened to people where, you know, it's like they had no structuring, and now it's just you personally. You're a sole proprietorship, which basically has very little, or if any, kind of protection at all. And yeah, you really want to avoid that, especially as you grow something, and it can grow very quickly. I mean, I've seen many times where people just started out, and all of a sudden something lined up, and all of a sudden, and poof, they're making a ton of money. And then next thing you know, there's people coming after that. So very important to structure yourself.
Yeah, because if you don't have your LLC, like even just a basic LLC, right? And you're not writing checks and hiring contractors. Let's say, you're flipping, right? And so you're going to be hiring your contractors and different people through that. Or even if you are doing some property management because you have a hold of, you bought and you hold. So everything's going well. You're doing it through your own name, or you're not doing it anonymously. You're doing it through an LLC that's your own name, blah, blah, blah. So all these people are being hired, these checks are going out, and everything's great. You start doing really well. Maybe you get like a popular podcast, or you get spotlighted on HGTV. I mean, it's like the dream, right? And then suddenly all these people come out of the woodwork and say, you never paid my W-2 taxes. Well, you were a contractor. I mean, I hired you to fix a sink in 3 of my houses. No, you hired me. Well, you don't have any paperwork, and it's all your name. And before you know it, you're going to go through the labor board, and you're having to do all this stuff. And had you just had things set up a little bit better in the beginning, and that's what we help people to do, but you're going to want to write all your checks through your LLC. You're going to want to make sure you have a business bank account. And nowadays you can get a free account. I mean, BBVA Compass has their commercial accounts, and they charge you a lot of fees. And a lot of people are like, golly, just to even open up a business account, you need like 10 grand, right? There's all these rules, and it seems like just so out of reach of someone who's, just staging houses, and that's your business, right? Well, no, now BBVA Compass has, I guess, this charitable bank called Aslo. There's no fees. Now it is stripped down. You're not getting very good service. If someone pays you, it's going to take days for you to get the money, but you do get a little credit card. You can't write a check out of it. I mean, it really is, you get what you're not paying for and that, but is it a great service for people just starting out? Heck yeah. Is it great to have a business account to do your first couple of flips and to have something to pay people? Heck yeah, it is. So there's all these little tips and tricks that you can use in the beginning and to do that. So later on down the line, you can say, no, I had the contract. This was, a company. You weren't a W-2 employee. Then you don't have to worry about anything. The entire idea of it is to protect yourself so you don't worry, so you don't get stressed out, so you don't, lay in bed and go, man, things are going so good. I wonder when the shoe's going to drop, right? I mean, we all have had that fear, and you don't have to have that at all, So it's trying to prevent that. Talking about something interesting, did you read that we're big on bigger pockets, and I had an old account, but I used it for another place. So now we've had restart our account with Leafy because I'm not, using another one. But anyway, I love going on the forums and I love talking to people, right? And there was a post yesterday that so tied into this, and I sent it to Brian and Tammy. Did you guys read it?
I did. I went through it. It's pretty funny. Well, kind of funny, not funny.
So what this post is about is the neighbor painted someone's trees and they wanted court. So the guy goes into this story. So he has an existing fence, it's a property line thing. And he's got an existing fence, and it only runs halfway down about a 75-foot lot, right? So he was going to do some branch clearing and pull a string, for the fence line, and then put a fence, because they're living in the flip until they flip it, right? So he gets the chainsaw out, and out of the woodwork comes this neighbor that he had been friends with before, yelling and freaking out, don't you touch anything, those are our trees, that's not right, blah, 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 and lawsuit, lawyer. I mean, it just turned like this guy's just trying to cut a tree. Eventually the guy goes and paints the trees. I mean, now you've got this little war. They have to get a surveyor out. He's wondering, should I call the police? Because, they actually are his trees. He's allowed to cut the trees, and so there's all this stuff that has to go on. And you wonder, if you're structured a certain way, you kind of don't have to worry. You know what you're supposed to do, right? Because
Sure.
Just going through the process of structuring yourself puts you in a different mindset, right? But if you're not, it gets kind of scary, because then what all can they do? Can they make it very difficult? If you want to flip it, who wants to flip a house next to, how are the neighbors? they're great. So anyway, he got a lot of great advice. Bigger Pockets is an amazing community. I highly recommend any real estate investor, or if you're just interested at all, to go on there. I mean, there's just a ton of incredible education for people. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But that was great.
That's funny. It kind of reminds me, I had a friend who is putting up a new fence at her house. And it was funny, it wasn't funny at the time. She was really pissed off because her neighbors would avoid her because it was an adjoining fence she wanted to upgrade. And the fence was falling down. It was really dilapidated. And so what happened was she went to the neighbors and didn't speak very good English. But anyway, tried to get them, and they kept avoiding her. And then because they didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to pay their half. And so ended up, she's like, I have to get it done. I want to get it done. It's going to make my yard look better. So she's putting in the fence. And then as they're putting in the fence, they have to go to the neighbor's side to put it up, obviously. So the neighbors aren't even paying for it. They get mad at her because the workers are on their side of the property line. And so it's like, what's going on? I'm paying for the fence, and now you're getting mad at me for that. And so they made some threats, but no one actually got called. And then they had to cut a tree as well. And so they even got mad about that too. And so it was kind of funny how stuff like that, no lawyers were ever called or anything like that. But it's just funny how just really weird stuff like that happens a lot more than you think it would. And so, yeah, they had to clear the tree to be able to put up the new fence that, their nice new fence that was being replaced. But, it's just so funny how certain people that, you wouldn't expect to act a certain way do. And so that's why you want to protect yourself, just because you never know what's out there, because it's just some people react totally opposite what you think they will. And logic has nothing to do with it sometimes. So
I want to tell you all that one story about Florida.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So okay, this is this other cool thing that happened. This is like, okay, well, it's not cool. This actually impacted somebody that we know. So okay, it's not cool. It's awful, but no one was hurt. Okay, so lives matter more. And the story itself is kind of a giggle, I guess. It's not if you're the owner of the property, and not if you're in the unit. So anyway, in Florida, because Florida man, it's always got to be in Florida. Tammy lives in Florida. She's going to go, thanks a lot. Okay, so in Florida, they have, so there's a unit, right? It has 8 units in this one condo unit. Each one of them has different owners, it's in a much larger complex, right? The actual owner of the building is like in South America, in like Argentina. And then they have a property manager, right? So you have individual owners. Some owners are away subletting, typical how that kind of goes. So everything's fine, and there's a fire, right? So a fire happens. So we happen to know someone who had just evacuated, was coming back to the house, and the property manager says, not too soon. They had went to another state. So for them, it's like this deal, right? So they find out that there's a fire, and they're trying to get more of the information. So finally they find out it happened in the attic. Well, how did it happen in the attic? What's going on? Because people are going to want to make their claims. They have renter's insurance. They have all this different stuff. They have to talk, because now it was a big enough fire. All units were affected. You have smoke damage throughout the units. Some people didn't have insurance, so the Red Cross had to come. I mean, it was a big deal. So the top unit had some dude in it, and unbeknownst to anyone else, he decided that the attic was this perfect place for him to grow pot plants, right? So he's got all these marijuana plants in the attic. So he goes up there, and then he sees a bees, like a beehive, not a beehive, what are those things, or wasp nests, a nest in there. Well, genius says, how do you get this out of an enclosed space with nothing but this tinder wood all around me? I know, I'm going to get a can of hairspray and a lighter. So he goes up there, everything goes up in flames. I mean, it must have been, terrifying, because it happened very quickly. The story happened very quickly. But you got to think, like, man, so even if you think you've got all your ducks in a row and you have a background check and you have all this stuff like that, you just never know what crazy things get in people's heads, And now you're on this property and you got a property manager, you got all these people because they all want their security deposits now. We need that money. We have no place to stay. They're telling us it may be months before we'll be able to get out. All of our stuff's gone. So we want, and it's the, whatever the month is, we paid, our mortgage or our rent on the first of the month. We want that back. We want our security deposit that. And, man, oh man, oh man. So it's when you least expect it, expect it for Florida, man. Oh, that's terrible.
Yes, exactly. It's going to happen anywhere. It will most likely happen here in Orlando, Florida. and a lot of times insurance doesn't cover everything either, So I mean,
is it covered by insurance?
Well, for our friend, they have had insurance for decades, right? And unfortunately, the insurance is like, yeah, because it's so much, we will reimburse everything. All these things you need will be reimbursed. And they're like, that's thousands of dollars. There's movers that got to get. You've got to get one of those companies like ServPro that comes in, and you can't just wash a couch down. Many times they have to take all the filling out. I mean, that's basically you're reupholstering your stuff because there's no way to really get that type of smoke damage, and chemicals and things like that out of it. And then you want to recover things like there's pictures and stuff like that. So, reimbursement. That's a deal. So. There will be lawsuits,
Yep. For sure.
Say this all the time. 1 in 25 Americans will get sued in their lifetime. If you're a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance in the next 20 years. It's a sobering statistic, but there are ways that you can hedge your bets and protect yourself. I mean, no one can protect themselves from any lawsuit. I mean, crazy people are going to just sue, but what you can do is insulate yourself from the damages to protect your assets to where they're, it's not a life ruining thing. You're insulating yourself from damage. So,
yeah, life always happens. And so, take that for what it's worth, hopefully none of this stuff happens to you or anybody, but, just know it does happen, unfortunately, and people get crazy ideas to do things like that, or people just do over whatever, depending on they have a bad day or they just feel like it. So definitely.
Yeah. Cause you can't, modify someone else's behavior. I think my biggest thing of advice for, if you're listening right now and you're freaked out, sorry, but if you are, there are things that you can do and they don't have to cost an arm and a leg. But the first thing is documentation. Write everything down, take lots of pictures, make sure you have your basics in order, make sure that you're not doing anything in your own name because that can affect your personal credit. And real estate investors, most like I would say the majority of real estate investors will get the mortgage in their name before they will transfer it off to a trust or an entity while it's processing either for the flip or whatever. So make sure you just do those things, and you should be just fine.
And for the kids out there, don't play with lighters and hairspray. It's very bad.
Ever.
Bad situations most times, so just don't do it.
Don't grow pot in an attic.
That too. There are so many things in that story.
That's right. Any morals of that story you can touch on?
I do admire the entrepreneurial spirit. I have to say, you're trying. That's like that meme of not Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson, and he has a cake for his dad, and it says, "Well, at least you tried." And then he screws up so bad, Bart just gets the cake and he just takes it and dumps it in the trash. Well, at least you tried, Kate. So I think that's fun. I think that's hilarious.
All right, cool. Well, if you guys have any cool stories too you want to tell, feel free to respond to this and, tell us your crazy story as well. I mean, it's always great to hear from other folks. And I know when we saw the post in Bigger Pockets, a lot of people were responding to that too with advice and their own stories. So, respond with your own story. What's your crazy, story? It doesn't have to be necessarily around, real estate, but if you have something that you want to share as well, I think it's always fun to kind of see that and see how you got around it as well and how it all turned out okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's some humdingers out there.
Yeah.
So
Come on, top us from another state already. I want to hear about the Ohio man or something.
Yeah, right. Really, you never hear anything from that, right? I think, what is it, Texas, Florida, California, Louisiana, and maybe Mississippi. Like those ones, it's going to be, and New Jersey. Yeah, it's going to be good. Then it's going to be some crazy.
True.
All the people from New Jersey need to say, hey, y'all. No offense.
All right.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you again for joining us. If you do want to respond, please feel free to email me, Tammy, at leafylegalservices.com, and we will give you a shout out on the podcast. And if you're interested in joining us, please do email me. Again, the email is Tammy, Tammy, at leafylegalservices.com, and I'll get right back to you. We've got ton of really awesome guests line up, and we really can't wait to continue our discussions with you all. And thank you again for listening. Happy Friday the 13th. I hope that it isn't too bad for you and you don't walk under any ladders or shatter any mirrors or see any black cats or anything like that. So.
Hey, in the UK, a black cat crossing your path is good luck.
Hey, okay. Well,
it depends on where you're
there
at.
You go. We can change it around for the poor black cats in America.
That's right. That's right. Those cats are getting a bad break there.
They do. Poor things. They're sweet too.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Well, until next time, thank you again for joining us. We really enjoy having you on the show and listening to us. So thanks again, Jen and Brian. Always awesome talking to you guys, and thank you for the great advice. So
awesome.
We'll hear from you all soon. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay, and wait, be able to share and like if you like it, and subscribe, and be sure to go on iTunes. We'll be dropping on iTunes soon, and give us a 5-star rating. And we're also on Podbeam, or put it in your podcatcher, whatever you need to do. And we'll be coming at you with some really, Tammy was right, amazing guests that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.